The issue of civil liability in modern policing that I chose is the topic of false arrest and false imprisonment. The picture right below the title I think is directly related to the topic of false arrest and false imprisonment because it's a man in handcuffs, and it also shows the judge's gavel, and I put the arrow there to specifically show the correct order in which it happens. The definition of civil liability is the potential for responsibility of payment to an aggrieved party due to the violation of a civil law, tort, or breach of contract. Ross explains, intervening and responding on behalf of society by enforcing the law is the point at which the police become vulnerable to civil liability. An example is false arrest or false imprisonment. Police officers are authorized to enforce the law and to arrest law violators. Officers are frequently sued for false arrest and false imprisonment. It's actually the #1 kind of civil liability. The definition of false arrest is an arrest made without a warrant or probable cause. False arrest is a form of false imprisonment conducted by a party who has authority to make the arrest. They must have intent to take the person into custody. The definition of false imprisonment is the unlawful restraint of a person without consent or legal justification. 3 components of an arrest: the intent of the arresting officer to take the person into custody. An officer making an arrest must have the authority to restrict the person's liberty. It has to be within the scope of authority. And the person must come under the control and custody of the officer. This can happen by voluntary means or through the use of physical force. Ross explains that claims of warrantless arrest without probable cause are one of the most frequently litigated issues. An example is, an arresting officer failed to take the arrested person before court within a reasonable time period or without unnecessary delay. This would lead to the officer being guilty of false imprisonment. The victim may be rewarded compensation for time lost while imprisoned and expenses such as attorney fees and other fees. To avoid liability, a person must establish that he or she did not imprison the other person, or he or she must justify the imprisonment in court. To ensure that false arrests and false imprisonments do not occur, all officers and other individuals given authority to arrest and detain an individual should be properly trained in the subject and learn how to avoid making mistakes such as misidentification. There are many cases showing false imprisonment claims for mistakenly arresting the wrong person and bounty hunters receiving these claims. There are many areas in policing that can increase the liability potential for officers. False arrests and false imprisonments are the #1 area where this occurs. Police work is a critical, necessary job that has very high potential for liability exposure.